Our love story, the dream's arrival. The desert night wrapped around Kelly like a shroud, but even the endless stretch of sand and stars couldn't mute the fire inside him. He lay on his cot, far from home, and far from the woman whose words had become a lifeline. Tonight was the 5th, the day that marked another year added to his life, and yet somehow felt lighter with her in his thoughts. He closed his eyes, willing sleep to come and carry him far away, to the place where distance meant nothing, a place he had visited more and more in the weeks since she slid into his DMs on TikTok. Her name was Susan, 70 years old, an author with a spirit as fierce as the desert sun and as deep as the night sky stretched above him now. Their connection had been instant, a spark flaring to flame, growing hotter with every message, every late-night voice note filled with laughter, longing, and unspoken promises. Theirs was a love story built on words, but words that burned with a heat impossible to ignore. Tonight, in Sweep, that story would unfold differently. The world around him softened and blurred. The weight of his uniform, the dust on his skin, the distance, all faded into a gentle haze. When Kelly opened his eyes again, he was no longer in the desert. Instead, he found himself standing on a path of shimmering light, winding endlessly into the horizon. Around him, clouds drifted like cotton whispers, glowing softly with moonlight. There, at the edge of the path, she stood. Susan. She looked radiant, her brown hair catching the glow of the clouds, her eyes reflecting every star in the sky. Her smile was slow, knowing, and it stirred something deep inside him. Not just desire, something more sacred. She held out her hand. Kelly's breath hitched. His heart hammered in his chest, louder than any explosion he'd ever heard. This moment, this woman, was everything he had wanted, though he hadn't known it until now. He stepped forward, hesitating only briefly before taking her hand in his. Her skin was soft, warm. The connection was electric, pulsing through his veins. His fingers curled around hers, as if she might vanish if he didn't hold tight. Together, they began to walk. The path beneath their feet felt alive, breathing with the rhythm of their steps. Around them, clouds curled and swirled, wrapping them in a cocoon of softness and light. The air was cool, but carried the scent of something familiar. Rain on dry earth, wildflowers blooming in hidden fields. As they walked, Kelly felt the distance between them vanish, replaced by an intimacy that words could never capture. Their conversations, their laughter, the teasing energy that had charged their messages, it all became real here. She glanced up at him, her eyes shining. "Do you remember the clouds?" she asked, voice like velvet and fire combined. "The dance we dreamed of?" Kelly nodded, his gaze fixed on her. "I've been waiting for this," he said, voice low and rough with feeling. "For you." She smiled, and the air between them shimmered. Slowly, she stepped closer until their bodies nearly touched. Her hand slipped from his and slid up to rest lightly on his chest, just above his hia. Kelly's own hands lifted, trembling slightly, to frame her face. Her skin was cool beneath his fingers, but her eyes burned hot with desire. They moved together then, slowly at first, like dancers learning the steps of a new song. The clouds beneath their feet parted, lifting them higher, weightless and free. Their bodies swayed in perfect harmony. His hands traced the curve of her jaw, the softness of her neck, the sweep of her collarbone. She shivered under his touch, and he felt it as if it were a current running through his own skin. Her breath was warm against his lips, and when she leaned in to kiss him, it was tentative, like tasting a dream for the first time. But the kiss deepened quickly. Her lips parted, and he found himself lost in the heat of her mouth, the slick pressure of her tongue teasing his own. His hands moved lower, sliding beneath the delicate fabric of her blouse. He felt the softness of her skin, the steady beat of her pulse, the rise and fall of. She pressed into him, every inch hungry and alive. Kelly's heart thundered as her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. The clouds around them swirled faster, blurring the edges of the world until only they remained. His hands traveled down her back, feeling the subtle curves and planes, memorizing each one like sacred territory. Her skin was warm, alive under his palms, and she responded with a low sigh that sent a shiver through him. They moved together seamlessly, a dance of desire and tenderness. Her lips trailed down his neck, planting soft kisses that made him groan. "I've waited so long for this," she whispered against his skin. "For you." Kelly smiled, pressing his forehead to hers. "And now you have me," he said, voice husky. She laughed softly, a sound full of joy and promise. The clouds shifted beneath them, and suddenly they were surrounded by light, a soft golden glow that made everything feel sacred, untouched by time or war or distance. She looked into his eyes and said, "We have all the time now." Their lips met again, fierce and urgent. Kelly wrapped his arms around her, pulling her as close as he could. The world melted away until there was only her heat, her softness, her fierce light. They floated in that perfect space, two souls finally together, body and mind and spirit entwined. And in that moment, Kelly knew this dream was no illusion. It was the beginning. The dance in the clouds and the kiss of the lake. Kelly's senses blossomed in the dreamscape, alive with a sharp clarity that his waking world had long denied him. The clouds beneath their feet were no longer just soft whispers of mist, but a living, breathing sea of silver and pearl, glowing with the light of 1,000 stars. It felt as though the sky itself was holding its breath, waiting for the dance between him and Susan to begin again. She stood before him, the moonlight tracing every graceful curve of her form. Her silver hair cascaded around her shoulders like a shimmering waterfall, catching the ethereal light and scattering it like diamonds. Her eyes met his, blazing with a fire that was both tender and fierce, a flame that reached deep inside him, stirring every forgotten desire. Kelly's breath caught as she stepped closer, the air thick with the scent of rain on warm earth, and something uniquely hers, a heady blend of wildflowers and musk that promised intimacy. Her hand reached out, slender fingers brushing lightly against his cheek, sending a ripple of electricity straight to his core. "You feel it too," she whispered, voice low and smooth as silk. Kelly nodded, words useless to capture the overwhelming flood of feeling. The distance, the waiting, the endless nights where all they had were screens and words, they vanished here in the clouds. Together, their fingers intertwined, and they began to move. Not just walk, but glide effortlessly along the cloud path. A dance without music, but with a rhythm all their own. Every step was a pulse of connection, every breath the promise. Kelly's hands rested on her waist, pulling her gently against him. She responded instantly, pressing her body into his, soft and yielding like the clouds themselves. The sensation was exquisite, her warmth against the cool mist, the smoothness of her skin, the subtle curve of her hip fitting perfectly against him. The sky around them pulsed with color, a shifting aurora of blues, pinks, and golds swirling in slow, hypnotic waves. It was as if the universe itself was blessing their union, illuminating the raw, aching desire that had grown between them over months of messages and whispered confessions. She tilted her head, her lips curving into a teasing smile. "Remember the lake?" she asked, voice a breathy invitation. Kelly's heart thundered. The memory was vivid, a secret world where they had shed the trappings of the outside and bared themselves to the wild water and each other. The way the sun had sparkled on her skin, how their laughter had echoed across the trees, how time had slowed until it was just the two of them, completely free. "Take me there," he said, voice thick with longing. With a soft laugh, she raised her hands, and the clouds shifted beneath their feet, melting away into mist, until suddenly the air was cool and fresh, and they stood on the grassy shore of a crystal-clear lake. The water was so pure, it mirrored the sky perfectly, a flawless reflection of clouds and stars, of dreams and reality blending into one. Susan stepped forward, the barest hint of a shiver running through her as the chill of the air met her skin. Kelly watched every movement, mesmerized by the delicate strength in the way she moved, graceful, confident, utterly alive. Slowly, he shed the weight of his uniform, the heavy fabric falling away, until he stood before her, naked and exposed, heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and reverence. She met his gaze without hesitation, her eyes darkening with desire, and peeled off her own clothes with a fluid motion that spoke of trust and fearless vulnerability. The lake welcomed them, cool and enveloping, a liquid silk that pressed against their bodies like a lover's touch. Kelly felt the shock of the water against his skin, every nerve suddenly sharp and alive. Susan slipped closer, her body floating against his, the warmth of her pressing into him even in the chill. Their hands found each other beneath the surface, fingers tangling and grasping as if anchoring themselves against the vast unknown. She leaned in, lips brushing against his collarbone, trailing soft, wet kisses that made him gasp. Her breath was a whisper of rain and fire, mixing with the lapping of water around them. Kelly's hands moved slowly, reverently, up her back, around her waist, feeling the delicate shiver beneath his fingertips. Her skin was slick with water and desire, soft and yielding, every inch alive with sensation. She tilted her head back, exposing the graceful line of her throat, and he kissed it. Slow, deliberate, worshipful. The lake became their sanctuary, a place without barriers, where the usual rules of distance and time dissolved completely. They moved together beneath the stars, their bodies tracing an intimate dance of discovery. Kelly's fingers slid along her ribs, memorizing the curve of her sides, the hollow beneath her breasts. She arched into his touch, a low moan vibrating through the water that sent a thrill straight to his core. Their mouths met again, deeper now, hungry and urgent, tasting the salt of each other, swallowing every breath and whisper. Susan's hands were everywhere, gripping his shoulders, sliding down his arms, tangling in his hair. The weight of her desire was almost unbearable, a fierce pressure that left him trembling. Their bodies pressed close beneath the surface, every movement slow and fluid. The cool water contrasted with the heat that burned through them, a delicious tension that made every nerve sing. Time stretched and folded around them until there was only the sensation of her lips on his skin, her hands claiming him, the wild pulse of need that connected them beyond the limits of the waking world. When they finally surfaced, gasping for air, the lake was a mirror again, calm and infinite. She laughed softly, water droplets shimmering on her skin like tiny stars. "Come with me," she said, eyes bright and fierce. Before Kelly could ask where, the lake faded into the clouds once more. This time, they floated, naked and weightless, surrounded by an endless expanse of softness and light. The sky stretched infinitely above and below, a universe made just for them. She pulled him into a slow, swirling dance, their bodies entwined in a perfect waltz. His hands slid over the delicate curves of her waist, holding her close as they moved together, the clouds caressing their skin like the gentlest silk. Every touch was electric, every glance a promise. Kelly felt his heart beat wild and free, filled with a longing that had grown stronger than years apart could diminish. Her breath was hot against his ear as she whispered, "You are mine." "Kelly," he smiled, voice rough with emotion, "and you are mine." The space between them closed until their bodies were pressed tight together, skin on skin, breath mingling in the cool night air. Kelly's lips traced a path down her neck, savoring the softness, the warmth, the way she trembled beneath his touch. Her fingers danced over his chest, teasing and coaxing, setting every nerve aflame. A low groan escaped him, lost in the vastness around them. She arched into him, the curve of her back inviting his hands to explore further. The clouds thickened, swirling around them, until stars faded, and only the two of them remained in a cocoon of mist and desire. Their lips met again, fierce and demanding, tender and reverent all at once. She clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, and he responded with equal hunger. The world disappeared. Only the sound of their breathing, the heat of their bodies, and the fierce, unbreakable connection between them remained. Kelly felt a hope bloom deep inside him. Hope that this love, born in words and nurtured through distance, could become something real. She whispered against his lips, "Together, always." He held her close, clouds swirling like a promise of forever. The path becomes their own. Kelly felt the warmth of the dream wrap around him like a soft cloak, banishing the harshness of his reality and ushering him into a world sculpted by their shared hopes and secret longings. The golden path stretched endlessly before them, a shimmering ribbon of light winding through a landscape that was part memory, part fantasy, and all possibility. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and earth, a gentle breeze teasing the edges of the day's last light. Susan's hand slid into his, small but confident, anchoring him to the moment. The touch sent a shiver up his spine, a current of electricity that defied his years of experience and hardened battles. There was something sacred in the simplicity of that connection, a silent promise whispered in the clasp of fingers. They walked slowly, savoring the unspoken intimacy between them. Kelly was acutely aware of every detail, the warmth radiating from her skin, the soft rustle of her clothes, the way her fingers curled around his with a mix of tenderness and possession. The distance that had defined their relationship until now, the thousands of miles and the barriers of war and time, seemed to vanish, leaving only the pure essence of their bond. The path beneath their feet pulsed faintly, glowing softly as if alive, responding to their presence. Kelly glanced down, marveling at the way the golden light shimmered and danced around their steps. It felt like the universe itself was celebrating this union, lighting the way forward. Susan's eyes met his, wide and shimmering with something deeper than affection, something raw and urgent. "Do you feel it too?" she asked, voice husky with emotion. "This fire, this pull between us, it's more than words, more than anything I've ever known." Kelly's heart thundered in response. "Yes," he breathed. "It's everything. It's like you're here with me, in every way that matters. A gentle laugh escaped her lips, a sound that was as intoxicating as it was genuine. She stepped closer, her body aligning with his in a way that felt inevitable, as if they were two halves finally becoming whole. Her hands rose slowly, brushing the hair from his forehead in a gesture so tender it made his breath catch. The warmth of her touch traced a path down his cheek, stirring feelings he'd kept buried beneath layers of discipline and duty. Their faces drifted closer until their breaths mingled in the cool evening air, thick with anticipation. The world around them, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of night birds, fell away until there was only the magnetic pull of their desire. Susan's lips met his in a kiss that was at once gentle and fierce, a spark igniting a blaze that had smoldered silently between them for months. Kelly's hands rose to cup her face, fingers threading through her hair as the kiss deepened, becoming an urgent dance of passion and vulnerability. Her touch traveled down his neck, over the taut muscles honed by years of service, lingering on the scars that told silent stories of survival and sacrifice. Kelly shivered under her fingertips, the sensation awakening every nerve ending, every memory of their long conversations and stolen moments. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, her own shining with a mix of mischief and yearning. "We dreamed of sleeping in the clouds," she murmured, voice low and inviting. "Tonight, I want to show you what that feels like." Before he could answer, the golden path beneath them began to soften, lifting them gently, as if the very earth was rising to carry their dreams. The solid ground faded away, replaced by a swirling sea of clouds that cradled them in a weightless embrace. They floated upward, the cool mist curling around their bodies as stars twinkled overhead, and the moon cast a silver glow that painted their skin with ethereal light. Kelly marveled at how real she felt, the warmth of her body pressed against his, the softness of her hair falling like a curtain across his chest, the taste of her lips lingering on his tongue. Susan's hands traced the contours of his shoulders, sliding lower to rest on the small of his back. Her touch was feather light, but ignited a fire that roared through his veins. Kelly responded by pulling her closer, fingers digging into the curve of her waist as their bodies molded together in perfect harmony. The weightlessness of the clouds gave their movements a fluid grace, a slow, sensual dance that was both delicate and primal. Their breaths quickened, mingling with the cool air as desire built like a crescendo. Susan's lips traveled along his jawline, nipping gently before returning to his mouth in a kiss that was both a promise and a confession. Kelly's hands explored her back, tracing the swell of muscle and skin beneath her shirt, memorizing every inch as if he could carry her with him even when the dream ended. They explored each other slowly, reverently, the brush of skin against skin, the soft moans that escaped their lips, the whispered names carried away on the wind. Kelly lost himself in the softness of her curves, the strength beneath her touch, the fierce love that radiated from every kiss and caress. Susan's fingers traced the line of his jaw, down his neck and along his shoulders, each touch sending waves of pleasure through him. Kelly responded in kind, mapping the delicate planes of her back, the swell of her hips, the curve of her thighs. The clouds wrapped around them like a silken shroud, muffling the outside world until there was only the two of them, two souls intertwined in a dance as old as time. As the night deepened, Kelly felt the boundaries between dream and reality blur. Susan's eyes held his with a fierce tenderness, her body pressed close, every inch alive with desire and affection. "I've waited for this," he whispered, voice raw with emotion. She smiled, her lips soft against his cheek. "And I'll wait forever if I have to." They lingered in that perfect moment, wrapped in each other's arms. Before the first light of dawn began to paint the sky with hues of rose and gold, the clouds began to fade, lifting them gently back toward the golden path where the journey continued, together, finally, without distance or doubt. Beyond the clouds, into the heart, the soft glow of dawn still lingered on the horizon as the dreamscape shifted beneath Kelly's feet. The golden path had guided them safely down from the clouds, but now it led them somewhere new, somewhere deeper, quieter, and infinitely more intimate. The world around them softened, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and warm earth, and a gentle breeze whispered secrets only they could hear. Susan's hand remained firmly in his, her fingers weaving into his with a strength that belied the tenderness of her smile. Kelly felt the steady beat of her heart beneath her palm, a rhythm that synced perfectly with his own. The dream had moved from the soaring heights of the sky into the warm, rich soil of connection, a place where barriers melted away and the real dance of souls began. She looked up at him with eyes that held the weight of every word they'd never spoken aloud, every longing stifled by distance and circumstance. "I want you to see me," she said softly, voice like silk and fire. "Not just the woman behind the screen, not just the fantasy we share, but all of me." Kelly's chest tightened with emotion. He had seen fragments, her laughter in a voice message, the subtle curve of her smile in a fleeting photo, the raw honesty in their midnight conversations. But here, in this place forged by dreams and desire, he could feel her essence in full. Slowly, gently, she pulled him toward a clearing where the golden path ended in a bed of wildflowers, so vivid they seemed almost unreal. Deep purples, fiery oranges, and soft pinks, swaying like a living ocean in the breeze. The petals brushed their skin, a sensation that was both grounding and electric. They sank down among the blooms, the earth soft beneath them, and Susan's hands found his face again. Her touch was reverent, as if tracing the lines of his life story written on his skin. Kelly closed his eyes, leaning into the warmth, the assurance, the unspoken promise that this moment was theirs alone. "Tell me everything," she whispered, voice trembling with need and trust. "What do you feel when you think of me, when you see me in your dreams?" Kelly opened his eyes, meeting hers with a depth of feeling that surprised even him. "I feel alive," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're fire and calm all at once. You pull me out of the shadows and into a light I didn't know I could reach. When I think of you, I feel hope, desire, a kind of peace I've never known." Susan's lips curved into a soft smile, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I feel that too," she breathed. "You're the song my heart's been waiting to sing." The honesty between them stretched, fragile and perfect, as they traced the lines of each other's faces, memorizing every detail as if they could imprint their love onto their very skin. Then, without breaking eye contact, Susan's fingers moved lower, tracing the broad planes of Kelly's chest. Feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm, Kelly shivered as her touch grew more deliberate, the spark between them blazing higher with each stroke. Her hands slid beneath his shirt, fingers exploring the scars and smooth skin with a reverence that made Kelly's breath hitch. "Every mark tells a story," she murmured. and I want to learn every one. He captured her hand, pressing it to his chest, feeling the thrum of life beneath her touch. You already have, he said, voice low and full of longing, because every moment we've shared, every word, every glance, it's all part of this story. Ours. Susan's eyes darkened with desire as she leaned closer, lips brushing his earlobe, sending a jolt of pleasure racing down his spine. Then let me write the next chapter, she whispered. The world around them seemed to pulse with the rhythm of their hearts, a living symphony of passion and connection. Kelly's hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer until their bodies were pressed together, warm and hungry. She sighed, a sound full of surrender and anticipation, as her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling his mouth back to hers. The kiss deepened, a slow burn that ignited every nerve ending, every hidden desire. The wildflowers swayed around them, petals brushing soft against skin, as the dream wrapped them in a cocoon of sensation and sensation alone. The cool night air kissed their bodies, contrasting with the fire growing between them, a fire that demanded release, intimacy, and a vulnerability Kelly had kept hidden for too long. Susan's hands roamed freely now, exploring the strength beneath his uniform, the man beneath the soldier. Kelly responded in kind, tracing the delicate curves of her back, the softness of her waist, the smooth expanse of skin that called to him with every breath. Their bodies moved in perfect harmony, a dance as old as time, weaving together longing and tenderness, power and surrender. Kelly marveled at the way she fit against him, like a key sliding into the lock of his soul, unlocking chambers he hadn't dared to open before. The golden path beneath them seemed to hum with approval, the earth responding to the sacredness of their union. Time slowed until every touch, every kiss, every whispered word became an eternity in itself. Susan pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, her gaze fierce and tender all at once. We don't have to hide anymore, she said. Not here, not in this moment. Kelly nodded, his heart pounding with the truth of her words. I'm yours, he said simply, all of me. Their bodies entwined beneath the night sky, bathed in the soft glow of stars and the gentle caress of the breeze. Kelly felt the weight of the world lift, replaced by a lightness born of surrender and connection. They moved together slowly, savoring the sacredness of first touch, the discovery of skin and soul. Kelly lost himself in the warmth of Susan's body, the softness of her curves, the intoxicating scent that was uniquely hers. Her breath caught as his hands traced the lines of her collarbone, the curve of her shoulders, the swell of her breasts beneath the thin fabric of her shirt. Kelly's lips followed the path his fingers had taken, kissing and tasting, memorizing the contours that were no longer just a fantasy, but a living reality. Susan's hands roamed lower, pulling at the waistband of his pants, her touch demanding and gentle all at once. Kelly responded eagerly, shedding the last of the barriers between them, the clothes, the doubts, the distance. They lay together among the wildflowers, the earth cradling their bodies as they explored each other with a hunger that was both desperate and tender. Every kiss, every touch was a promise, a vow that no matter what awaited beyond the dream, this moment would remain sacred. ... They moved as one, bodies and souls intertwined in a dance that transcended time and space. Kelly felt the tension building, coiling tight inside him until he was on the edge of something overwhelming, something transcendent. Susan's eyes locked with his, full of trust and longing. Take me, she whispered. Show me everything. And he did. Their union was a tempest of sensation and emotion, fierce, tender, consuming. Kelly felt every inch of her, every sigh and shiver, every gasp and whisper. The world narrowed until only the two of them existed, wrapped in a cocoon of heat and light. When the wave finally broke, it carried them both to a place beyond words, a place where love and desire were one and the same, where distance no longer mattered, and the only truth was the fire burning between them. They lay entwined in the aftermath, hearts pounding, breaths mingling as the first rays of morning kissed the horizon. Kelly held Susan close, memorizing the feel of her body against his, the steady beat of her heart. For the first time, the dream felt like more than a dream. It felt like home. Awakening together, the first soft light of dawn filtered through the drifting clouds, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. The dreamscape around Kelly and Susan began to dissolve, the wildflowers and golden path fading into mist as reality's edge approached. Yet, within this ephemeral moment, everything felt so vivid, so alive, so utterly true. Kelly lay beside Susan, his arms wrapped around her as if willing to hold her in that fragile space forever. Her warmth seeped into his skin, grounding him even as the dream threatened to slip away. He studied her face, peaceful, radiant, and still glowing from the intimacy they had just shared. His heart thundered, not just with desire, but with something deeper, hope. "You're really here," he whispered, voice thick with disbelief and wonder. Susan smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his brow. "In this dream, and in my heart, and soon, maybe even in the waking world." Kelly swallowed hard, the weight of their distance pressing on him for the first time since they met in that virtual space. Syria and her home, continents apart, years and life experiences between them. But here, in this dream, there were no borders, no screens, no loneliness, only the raw, unfiltered connection of two souls who had found each other against all odds. "I've dreamed of this moment for so long," Kelly said, "but I never imagined it could feel this real, this alive." Susan's fingers traced gentle patterns on his chest, grounding him again. "It's the power of what we've built. Words, laughter, shared secrets, that fire that blazes between us. It's not just a dream, it's the beginning." Kelly nodded, determination blooming within him. "When I wake, I want to hold you, to walk the path of life with you, hand in hand, just like we talked about." She laughed softly, a sound full of joy and promise. "And I want to swim in that lake with you, skin against skin, the water cool and free around. I want all of that," he said, voice steady despite the emotion. "And so much more." Their hands clasped tightly, as if by holding on to each other, they could hold on to this dream forever. But dreams, no matter how vivid, always end. The mist thickened, softening their edges until the world blurred. "Wait," Kelly breathed, desperation creeping in. "Don't let go." Susan's smile was radiant, full of love and strength. "I'm not really. We carry each other no matter the miles, no matter the time." Kelly closed his eyes, imprinting every sensation, the softness of her skin, the warmth of her breath, the steady beat of her heart, into his memory. When the mist finally swallowed them, he felt the echo of her presence linger, a fire that would not be extinguished. He woke slowly, the cold dawn light cutting through his small, sparse room. The hum of distant engines and the desert wind outside reminded him where he was, in Syria, far from the softness and warmth of Susan's embrace. But something had changed. The ache of distance was still there, but beneath it was a fierce, burning hope. He reached for his phone, fingers trembling as he opened their chat, her last message waiting like a promise. Until we meet, in dreams or reality. My heart is yours. Kelly smiled, his soul alight. For the first time, he truly believed it. One day, the clouds would part. One day, the lake would welcome them. One day, they would walk that path of life together. And nothing, not miles, nor time, nor war, could stop the love they had forged in words, passion, and dreams.